Hi everyone, and welcome to Crafting with Marilyn. Today I'd like to share with you my 2 paper pumpkin alternatives from the October Paper Pumpkin Kit. Phew, that was a lot of peas. These are the cards we'll be making in this 2-part video. The first part will be the cat on the fence. Here we go. For the card base, you will need a piece of gray granite cardstock cut 8.5 by 5.5 and scored at 4 1/4. You will need a strip of basic black cardstock cut 11 by 1/4. You will also need a piece of old olive cut 1 inch by at least 6 inches. And finally, you will need a piece of bumblebee that is cut at least 3.5 by 3.5 square. From the Paper Pumpkin Kit, you will need the scored pop-up box that has not been folded. You will need glue dots. You will need the double pumpkins. You'll need the single pumpkin. You'll need the black cat, and you will need the scalloped sentiment strip. Other tools that you will need will be the Stampin' Up trimmer, the Bumblebee ink, the old olive ink, the black memento, Tuxedo black memento ink. You will need the layering circles, and we're going to be using the largest, the 3-inch one. And you'll need some sponge daubers. For sentiments, you will need the Trick or Treat Spooky and Sweet sentiment, and you'll also need Have a Happy Halloween. We'll begin by preparing the fence. So where we've popped out the diamonds, I'll pop out another one here so you can see more clearly. Okay. We're going to cut right along this score line. So you've got this scalloped edge to your right. You've got the diamond openings over here to your right. And you're going to line up your score line right with the channel and come down and cut this. Put this aside, you can save it for another project. Then we're going to flip it over, and now we're going to cut through the score line where the diamonds created the openings. And you'll see that you may not be able to see it on the screen here, but there are the score marks here. And you're going to cut that. And again, you're going to put this aside because we're going to use this piece for the second card. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to cut along these score lines. Again, we're still working on making the fence. You need 5 of these. I love how this guard is really gripping this cardstock here. It makes it very easy to cut these apart. There's 4. Okay, we're going to cut one more. And I'm going to use my little trick here that I showed in my recent Take 5 video of using this to make sure that it's really secure, since now it's difficult to have too much to hold on to. And we'll just slice that up. Now we're going to hold on. We're going to discard this. Again, save it for another project if you'd like. We're going to now cut these in half. Doesn't have to be exact. You can kind of line it up so that this end of the, it's not really a point, I guess a blunted point, is riding along the track. Again, it's supposed to be a spooky card, so the fence doesn't have to be exactly all the same size. We're going to do this 5 times as well. And then you're going to decide if you want your fence points going this way or your fence points going this way. Doesn't matter. We'll just use the points all going the same way. Okay, now you can see that I've cut all 5 in half, and I'm going to have my pickets going to the right. I also wanted to mention that since the cardstock is 2-sided, if you prefer this striped side for your picket fence, then go ahead and use it. It also will make a terrific fence. The next step is using your grid paper or some other form of measurements. You want to line these up so that they are about 3 inches in width from here to here. This paper makes it really easy to do that. So now we're going to slide 2 of them away so that we can do the weaving for the fence. Using your glue dots, and you take your pick tool or whatever works best for you, you're going to put dots about 1/4 of an inch down from that fold line right there. That one's giving me problems. And we're going to do it on all 3 of these. Again, try to make the dots. Oh, that one didn't work. Real life here, guys. Okay, try to make the dots approximately even. And the last one, move this back to 3 inches. I will admit this part of the process is a bit fussy, but it's not hard. You just have to have a little patience as you're lining everything up. It'll get easier in a moment. Okay, now we're going to take these off. And do a final check to make sure that these are relatively even. Again, this is on 0, and this one's on 3 inches, and this one's in the middle. We're going to take our black strip. Now make sure you leave some extra over here. I'm sorry, I'm working almost off frame, but I wanted to be able to use the grid paper. And you're going to line these up like this. And press down. Now, if the fence isn't exactly even, it's okay. Again, it's supposed to be a spooky Halloween card. Now you're going to take these other 2 and you're going to flip them over. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to put glue dots about 1/4 of an inch down on the back side. So whatever you're doing for the front side, flip it over on these 2 and put it on the back side. Boy, I really am having trouble getting these glue dots up, only because I'm recording, I'm sure. Okay. You're going to take these off, and these you're going to lay on top of, oh, this one doesn't want to stick. I think it's missing its glue dot. Let's try again. I think I have glue dots flying all over the studio here. Okay, back in business. There we go. Okay, so now you're going to take, it's not exactly even though, is it? In the middle. Oh gosh. Again, just going to keep this video rolling here. We'll get through this. All right, like I said, this is the part, the first part is a little bit fussy. Now that you've done this, you're going to put these on top. So essentially we're doing a sort of basket weave. Okay. Now you want to take your snips, and again, leave yourself some space over here because we can trim it down later. Cut this off, and then you're going to do the same process for the bottom, with these 2 being the bottom and these 3 being the top. Now to get my glue dots even, I'm going to use a line on here. So I'm going to come right above that 5-inch mark to put these on. Just a little hint, all right? And it's hard to see, but there's my 2 glue dots for this next step. Take these off. And as I said, this now becomes the top. And you want to put this on in such a way that you still have space on each side. Not space, I mean extra black on each side. Then you're going to take 3 more glue dots, and you're going to put them on right on top here, on the ones that are going to go in the back, or towards the back. And this will be the final step in our basket weaving. Take these off. Okay, and then you're just going to carefully flip this over like this. Let me come back into camera range better here, now that I'm not using the grid paper anymore. And the final one. And that one popped off a little bit. Now you don't have to worry that these aren't sticking really well. We're only using the glue dots here because it just needs to hold good enough to get it onto the card. Once we glue this down, nothing is going to be going anywhere. So that is the fussiest part of this card. You can just put it aside, and now we'll work on the front of the card. Actually, before we start the front of the card, I like to remind myself, and I'm reminding myself now, to stamp on the inside of the card first before you start, affixing things to the front of the card. That way, if it goes terribly wrong, you have time to fix it or to start over again. But that looks just fine, so we'll go with that. Then the next thing you want to do is, let's move the card out of the way. I'm going to get my silicone mat here. Let's close the ink pad up so I don't end up with that all over me. Okay. I don't know if you're familiar with this silicone mat, but it's wonderful because you can just, start your glue on it. Let's try that again. Start the glue on it. Okay, I guess I've got the wrong one here. Let's try another one. There we go. To make sure that it's flowing well. And then you can work on this, and you know that you won't be getting any glue on your card or on your work surface. Then this will dry, and whether it's this or Stampin' or the Seal Plus or whatever it is, it just rolls right off or washes right off with warm water. So let's take this out of the way, bring this forward here, and we'll just affix this. And now the inside of our card is done, and now we'll move on to the outside of the card. While we still have the Tuxedo black ink out, I'm going to get my other stamp, and I'm going to stamp on this. And then we'll be done with the Tuxedo black ink. Good. Anybody else hold your breath when you stamp? I do. Okay, so we'll set that aside. Right, the next thing we want to do is cut out the bumblebee circle with the die. Of course, I've temporarily misplaced the die. No, there it is. Okay, so just put that on there, and I'll run it through the machine. Once you've cut your circle, you want to take the bumblebee ink and one of the sponge daubers, and we're just going to give a little definition and a little shading to the end or the edges of the moon. So just lightly tap your ink pad. Let me move that over a bit so you can see better. Let me lightly tap your ink pad and just go around the edges. Not looking for perfection here, we're looking for shadowing. And so this will also make it pop against the gray just a little bit more. Just go all the way around. Once you've stamped it a few times on, or daubed it a few times on the ink pad, it pretty much has enough ink to go all the way around. Okay, there we go. So this is an insert into the video, and I apologize, but somehow I lost a bunch of video and I am unable to recreate it because I've run out of some of the elements that I've used on this card. So let me just say that the next step that you want to do is you want to dry fit your moon and your fence so that it is a pleasing area. You're going to have some of the black crossbars of the fence hanging over this way and over here. And so you're going to want to trim those. I think it looks good to have a little bit of an extra piece of the black on to the left, and then it just sort of fades off into the right. You'll notice that these two cards are a bit different. One, I have the cat up here, one I have the cat here. The moon's a little bit different. It's really personal preference. I think you do want to make sure, though, that you leave space for the sentiment strip. Once you're pleased with where the moon and the fence are going to be, then you should glue them down or use the Seal or Seal Plus, whichever works for you. And that way your fence will no longer be shifting. On this one, the fence is taller. This one, it's shorter. Again, personal preference. Once the moon and the fence are secured down, then you should decide where you want to put your cat. I do want to point out, though, that it is important to have his feet sort of anchored on something on the card and not just kind of floating in the air. So on this card, it's on the top crossbar, and on this card, it's on the bottom crossbar. Then you want to attach your sentiment. I chose to attach it flat. You may certainly choose to elevate it on dimensionals. I thought just having the pumpkins on the dimensionals look good on my card, but you may choose whichever one you would like. We'll pick up the video again where I'm talking about the grass and how I did it and everything. I also put an insert in there for those of you that have a scan and cut and want to use that design. I've taken a picture and shown you which design it is. All right, so I've cut my grass on the scan and cut, and you will see I have cut it larger so that we can cut off whatever we don't need, and that way you're sure that it butts up right against the end. I did want to show you, although it's in white, but I did want to show you what using the die from the pine set would look like. You could do something like this, and again in green, and it would look cute. All right, we're going to take our old olive now. Let's move the card out of the way so we don't get ink on it. We're going to take our old olive, and again with the sponge dauber, we're just going to lightly tap, and we're going to go over the edges of the grass or the grassy mounds or however you cut it. Now you'll notice maybe that I did cut this one a little bit more narrow than I did the first one I used, and I think I'm going to like it better. But you should make it as thick as you want it, have the grass as tall as you want it, whatever looks good for your card. All right, that looks good. Now, let's get our card back again and decide where you want it. I did pay a little bit of attention so that I'm not cutting a piece of grass off in the middle. Again, we're going to put some glue on it, not go quite all the way to the end, depending on where you're going to place it. Place it over here. And you'll see too that that does sort of help. If your fence was not even, it's not going to show. Oops, after I said that, I went and I was cutting off that grass. That would have looked funny. Okay, so we'll do that. Press that on. Make sure it's even with the bottom of your card. You know, do as I say, not as I do, right? There we go. That's better. Okay, press it down when you're happy with it. Again, flip it over. Trim it. And you're almost done. The last step is to mount the double pumpkins. And I did mine like right here. Let me get some Stampin' Dimensionals. I think I used 3. You want to use enough that if this is going through the mail and it gets sort of crushed a bit, that it's not going to crush this. Put these off. Okay. And again, place it wherever you'd like. I think that looks good on my particular card. So this concludes this card. It's all done. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it enough to watch part 2. See you soon. Bye-bye.